and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is alignment. And we often sell ourselves out to do things that aren't really a reflection of our highest values and the essential song of our soul. And we're going to have a look at the rewards of alignment in terms of making making a fulfilling life for ourselves. But before we get started, let's take good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. It's great to have you here with us. We're talking about alignment today, and alignment with our values and our soul song, and how important that is to a fulfilling life and the temptations that may lead us astray. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel all those wonderful sensations of friction and pressure and temperature, motion, and the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all of those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome. So we're talking about alignment today, and this came up because I have a friend who we discussed the possibility of learning a programming language together called Solidity, which is kind of the foundation of the cryptocurrency space. And it's a relatively new language, and there's tremendous amount of demand, and people that can program in this language are getting paid really well. So there was the lure of quick money and being in the crypto space, being more versed in what's going on there. And I have a background. I was a technical trainer for 18 years. I had an Adobe training center for Adobe software, and I taught ActionScript and JavaScript, and so I have a foundation in nominal foundation in coding. And so it seemed like something that I could do, and she's really interested in doing it. And I had said to her, well, the only way I would do it is if we did it together, because having somebody to do something with like that, it would be fun. I have no drive whatsoever to do it on my own. So she asked today, and I checked in and realized, I look at the life that I've created over years, part of it deliberately and part of it seemingly by happenstance, and recognize that I'm very much in alignment and becoming more and more in alignment with my soul, with my heart and soul. And there were many, many years of my life where I was so out of alignment, and it was so painful. And I was doing that. I was in sales. Well, you don't know probably, but I was in sales for 10 or 12 years before I had my training company. And I initially I enjoyed it because it was a way to connect with other people. And I joke that I went into sales to socialize myself, but it wasn't my motivation to go into sales, but it was one of my outcomes. I learned how to be able to engage with people on a more casual level. But I, welcome, Gia. Good evening to you. It's great to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about alignment and how really deeply important it is. I mean, I have shared with you that I had gone through years of depression, like intense, extreme depression. And I think in retrospect, a big part of that was that I was so profoundly out of alignment with the calling of my soul, with my essence. And so, what today's conversation is about is how we get tempted into doing things that look good on paper. It looks good on paper to say, okay, well, I can invest this amount of time, I can do this thing, I can work for a living, make really good money, and which is a benefit. And for some people, it may be enough of a benefit to justify that work. But if you're not in alignment with it, if it's not something that calls to your heart and soul, we've talked about investing your time, and that investing your time is investing your life. And the truth is that we all have a bounded amount of time. And how do we want to spend that time? Do we want to be spending it doing something that is at worst a deep affront to us, and something that isn't representative of our essence? Or do we want to spend it doing things in the world that enliven us and enrich us? And I think that this conversation is related to a paradigm that hopefully is falling away, the paradigm of suffering and struggle, where we go to work and make a living, which is a funny phrase as we look at it, but we go to work and do something that we don't enjoy doing to make ends meet. And I get that not everybody has been able to discover the thing that lights them up. I think that when we give ourselves permission, there's so much more available to us, to find, even if we start with hobbies, even if we start by giving ourselves permission to pursue interests that we have and to try different things and to see if those things resonate for us. But I think the soul searching to identify the things that align with you is a really important thing. And I know that a lot of my life and a lot of my depression in my life was a result of feeling that life was empty and meaningless. And it may be, I kind of don't think so. I know that we make the meaning that we live, and how we direct our energy and intention and attention is really an important part of the fulfillment that we experience in life. You know, finding a sense of mission, passion, purpose. It, for me anyway, it saved my life because I was suicidal. And I know that I'm not the only one that has been through that deep darkness of feeling lost and misdirected. So Rosalind says, how to validate or discern our clarity around outcomes. Is this energy anchored in emotions around it as in our heart's calling? How to validate or discern our daily, our clarity around outcomes. Is this energy anchored in emotions around it as in our heart's calling? I guess if we don't know, being aware of what it isn't, like regret, denial, or apathy. I don't know if it's just me this morning, Rosalind, but I'm not understanding what you're saying. I don't think we want to be looking at as much at outcomes as process, you know, as engagement. Like, is being engaged in this something that's enlivening to me? Is it in alignment with my values? Is it in alignment? Our heart's calling, I don't think our heart's calling is about emotion necessarily. I think that we experience emotions when we are connected to our heart's calling. And maybe that's what you're saying, but I think that we have a sense of alignment, a sense of fit, you know, like something fits, it feels right, it feels fulfilling. And being aware of what it isn't, like regret, denial, or apathy. So if we're not feeling regret, denial, or apathy, then we're at least more in alignment than if we were feeling those things. I'm not sure if I'm addressing what you were trying to say, Rosalind. Please let me know. But for years and years and years, I just felt untethered, untethered is the best word, you know, like that. Not that anybody wants to be tethered necessarily, but I just felt like I was kind of aimless, and it was devastating. It was so painful and depressing to me, just like not knowing what the heck I was doing here. And it was largely because I wasn't giving myself permission to be who I am. And I had felt unacceptable and not okay because I held values and interests that weren't held by my family or my circle. And, as sort of an outlier. And I didn't give myself permission to just be me. So Gia says, what does it mean that not everyone gets to identify their purpose? Not the exact word that you used, but I want to know why you said so. I don't think I said that not everyone gets to identify their purpose. I think it's that not everyone has yet identified their purpose, Gia. And to me, to me, our ultimate purpose is the purest expression of our authentic self. So it requires giving ourselves permission to seek that out, to say, what matters to me? Who am I? What calls to me? What can I contribute? What will give me a sense of fulfillment? Where do I find joy? Where do I find a sense of engagement? I can tell you that I think it's not that not everyone gets to, but not everyone has. And and not everybody even thinks about it. They just do what they do and they don't really think about it. And, it's interesting. So this is when we talk about a midlife crisis. So many people experience a midlife crisis because they get to a place where they have the things that society values or says this is the game. You want to have some financial security, you want to be married with kids and whatever, like whatever that picture is. And then you've arrived at that place, and still what the experience is that there's something major missing in your life. Like that all these things aren't what they promised to be, that this isn't giving you the happiness that you expected or were promised by culture to say, okay, when you achieve this level of whatever, you'll be happy. But you turn around and it's like, I'm miserable. This is not giving me a sense of fulfillment and enrichment. And that happens a lot in midlife because we've done all this striving to achieve whatever this picture is, and then it's not there. It's smoke and mirrors and not the rich fulfillment that we had hoped with. So Rosalind says, I associate alignment with course correcting. I know you don't like using the term goals, instead refer to it as the outcome. So I say intention, and it's not that I don't like the word goals or outcome, Rosalind, at all. And I just associate that view with striving rather than intending. And I agree with you about course correcting 100%. So Rosalind says, so what is the genuine practice? That the outcome is a mirage, arrive at the destination, find there's no water at the oasis. I love that. So the thing about outcomes and goals is that you go and you achieve the outcome, you achieve the goal, and then what? Then there's another outcome and another goal. Whereas an intention is kind of in my speaking of it or in my thinking of it is a context. It's a context for living, living into, so that it's always emergent. It's not, you may have these flags along the way, these achievements along the way, milestones or whatever that are pretty awesome. And but if we're living for the goal, that's a short-term kind of practice. Then we have to recreate something new. We finish that, we rarely give ourselves the opportunity to enjoy that achievement, right? And then it's the next thing. Like in sales, you're only as good as your next sale. It's like, what have you done lately? And that's kind of the challenge that I have with this goal orientation. We can set intentions and we can have milestones along the way. That's okay. And goals are okay too. I mean, some people do great with goals. I just find that it's part of the more mentality, rather than life as process, rather than life as outcome. Like life is a process. It's an ongoing process. Like you're saying, course correcting, Rosalind. Gia says, I so resonate with you. I felt miserable post my first delivery till 19 years since childhood. I learned from my therapist. I didn't really give myself permission to express myself for who I was. And I paid heavily for it. I was suicidal for more than 14 years. Gosh, everything you said resonates with me. With my past experience, but yes, life is much better. Good, beautiful now. Yes, it makes such a difference when you have a sense of purpose, and the key to a sense of purpose is having the willingness and courage. It takes courage oftentimes because we're told we're not okay the way we are. We're told that this or that or the other thing is wrong with us, rather than nurturing our innate or our essential, like as in essence, being. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an artist. I was not okay in my family. Art was something that didn't matter. It wasn't a way to be able to make a living. And I ended up going to art school, but only after I dropped out of school for a couple years, and my parents just really wanted me to go back to school. So when I said I was going to go back to art school, they were thrilled. So it's really interesting, how our being will assert itself. And it often means fighting to allow yourself the freedom to be who you are. That's what we came here to be. We came here to be our uniquely authentic, quirky, weird selves. We came here to be an expression, our unique expression. And in being that, that's how we best serve the world. And so finding the things that are in alignment with that expression is life affirming rather than life denying. So Rosalind says, stepping back from all the things externally, what is left? If direct experience doesn't require concepts, so then the intention or practice is internal, an inward journey to self-realization, because identity is unstable. I think I don't think unstable is the best word, Rosalind, as I would think that identity is fluid. Identity is fluid, but our essence is pure. Like our essence is ever present. Like our essence is the context through which we express ourselves in life. And when we're in alignment with that essence, then life is a very different experience. When we're denying that essence, when we're trying to be something other than we are, that's when we experience things like feeling suicidal. You know, if we're convinced that we're not okay to be who we are, or we can't find a way to express that in the world, then that's when we have challenges with living and with life. So I think there is an intentional internal awareness that allows us to connect with our essence. You know, it's like, well, what enlivens us? What feels good? What are we drawn to? What, you know, those all of those things are keys to our gifts. And it's in the expression of those gifts that we're in greatest service to ourselves and to the world, I think. So that's it for this morning. I've got to wrap this up. I really appreciate your engagement. Really, this is important stuff, and to not co-opt ourselves. So that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And oh, Dido, so glad to have you here with us. And please check at 9 a.m. Eastern, by the way, please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And I look forward to seeing you again here really, really soon. And until then, so much love to you.